Powered by Go Goat Sports and in partnership with TSN. This is season 3. It is episode 39 of the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast. Brought to you by our title sponsor, Canadian Club Whiskey. 39 is a beefy number, Ray, isn't it? Like, that's a lot of talking, a lot of podcasts.
It is when you put it that way, man. We've talked a lot this year. It's been a lot. Okay, does this year feel like forever?
Yeah.
Like the season itself, and here we are.
Kind of does.
Yeah, and here we are, potentially last day of the season, and it's like I can't honestly, I can't even remember the beginning of the year.
Imagine playing, right?
Yeah.
Imagine your life as a player. I mean, yours is close outside of the physicality because of the amount of travel and hotels and everything that goes into that. But take yourself back into the player realm and what these guys have had to get through.
Remember when the season stopped? Like, I thought that was last year.
I know.
It's like it's all just a big jumbled thing, but here we are with Colorado one win away, and they've been the best team all year. And now they gotta put it together one more time.
Yeah, we've got a lot to get through here, and apologies because we're recording this on Friday, the day of Game 5 of the Stanley Cup Final. So some of what we're going to talk about may or may not be relevant when you're tuning in, but nonetheless, lots to get through in headlines. We've got new Florida Panthers coach, Ray, Paul Maurice, who's kind enough to come out of exile, self-imposed exile, right? He was off the radar. You didn't hear from Paul. You didn't see him after he left Winnipeg, but now he's back in the NHL, and he's going to join us and share his thoughts on why Florida is the best fit for him. Headlines are presented by our pals at Boston Pizza. The Boston Pizza Patio is back. Delicious new summer menu there, but only for a limited time. They've got the new Mexican-inspired items like the Fiesta salad and the loaded Tex-Mex fries. So visit your local BP today because Boston Pizza is the place where those in the know patio. All right, too many men on the ice. Overtime winner, Game 4. Nazem Kadri, big part of that illegal change. What did you make of it? Because there's so many different ways that we can take this, starting with it was a missed penalty, right? Would we agree? We would agree it's a missed penalty. As egregious as Tampa Bay fans would have us to believe, or something, Ray, in the games that you've done for ESPN this year and for TSN that you've seen 50 times or more?
Okay, so this is when I left the rink, or just prior to leaving the rink, the only thing anybody was talking about was, did anyone see the puck go in the net?
I know.
Right? Nobody was really talking about too many men until Jon Cooper came out and spoke on it. Mm-hmm. There was a few people that had caught on, or because the game sheet, the event summary that the league puts out, is generated off the player tracking. It used to be done by 10 guys in blue jackets, but now it's done by player tracking. And so that was released, and it had 6 Colorado players on the ice, plus the goalie.
Not ideal.
Not ideal. Whoops, we got a problem. Okay, so at least 3 times in Game 4, 3 times, I'm standing right between the benches. I hear one or the other bench screaming, too many, too many.
Okay.
They think the other team has got too many men on the ice. At least 3 times. I can't quite remember if it was more, but happens at least once in every game that I can remember doing. On that play, nobody said anything. It was chaos. Because if you remember the shift, the puck had been in Tampa zone for some time and they cleared it out. Mm-hmm. So guys on both teams are gassed and they're trying to get to the benches, and there's guys going to the Tampa bench. Colorado's jumping on the ice. There's a shot. There's a player tracking. Now, again, this isn't a still photo manipulated. The player tracking shows at one point there's 7 Tampa guys on the ice. And 6 Colorado guys, plus the 2 goalies. There's 15 guys on the ice. And so my only point is, there's no question Kadri was on the ice way early. Up to 4 seconds, I believe. Yeah. So if you watch, he jumps over the boards. He thinks he's changing for Nichushkin. Nichushkin's going up the ice. but he doesn't come to the bench because remember, Kadri is not a centerman.
Yeah.
Kadri is playing wing. But in that confusion, he jumps on, Nichushkin stays on the ice, and McKinnon's kind of in the slot. And I think he realizes, wait a minute, that didn't look right. And so he comes to the bench. Now, when you're a little kid, the coaches tell you, skate hard to the bench. Nate did not skate hard to the bench. He meandered his way to the bench.
Yeah.
Kadri's out there for 4 seconds because he's on the other side of the ice. So, yes, it was a missed call. 100%. Can't deny that fact.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wasn't called, missed. There's only one way to fix this, Dregs. That's to go to the old international change rule, which I'm telling you is like, as we know, we've seen it a million times. If one guy steps a toe on the ice early, they call it too many men on the ice.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm telling you, North American hockey fans, coaches, managers, players, fans would have that rule in place for 8 seconds before they would hate it. Not dislike it, hate it.
Yeah.
So this gray area we have to live with, and that's part of it. I don't like that it was a play that was of such significance. I think Tampa backed off their complaints the next day because they see the player tracking and they see there's a point immediately before Kadri gets a puck. They got 7 guys on the ice.
Exactly.
So they back. I think, look, Jon Cooper is, if he's not the best coach in the league, he's the best coach in the league. And he's also a lawyer. He's smart and he's awesome because he gives thoughtful views of things that happen. He'll stop and think, and I really have learned a lot listening to him. And his, I don't know what you call it after the game, was emotional, exhausted, had literally just seen that clip.
Yeah.
And came out and spoke. And then the next day he's like, it is what it is. I also like Jared Bednar. He goes, to me, it's nothing. It's nothing.
Yeah.
He goes, that happens 20 times a game. Maybe not egregiously, but
right.
It's not Brett Hull's foot in the crease. It's not Brett Hull's foot in the crease.
It's not. But, automatically, when you see something like this, of this magnitude, that's what social media is about. We need to enact change. This can never happen again. So you've got all these theories. Well, maybe it's time the hockey operations took over and they review every single goal, aside from the obvious ones. Maybe it's a breakaway or whatever. Puck crossed the line. Yes. Was it offside? No. Were there too many men on the ice? No. Okay, good goal. Away we go. But now you're adding another layer to the robotics of what NHL officiating is. Mistakes happen. This was a mistake. Do we really want to go back to 3.5 hour games?
We don't.
That's what you'd end up having.
And let me tell you, let me add this in. So the only way review helps on that case is if the rule is then called with no gray area.
Right.
Which I just talked about, the international rule, and people will hate it. They'll hate it. So I think most people felt Victor Hedman was tripped in the third period and should have been a penalty.
Yeah, there were a few in the third. Yeah.
Right. So do we like that, or do we want those penalties called? I prefer that penalty to be called. I prefer the McDonough tripped up Kadri coming out of the corner. I prefer that to be called.
I'm surprised you're not more pissed off about that. And that doesn't,
Dregs,
you have no skin in the game because you're always saying, look, if it's the standard game 1, then call it in game 4 of the Stanley Cup Final.
Everybody's complaining about this too many men on or off the ice, should be, shouldn't be. They forgot about the other stuff. That's how our attention span is. We forgot about the other stuff that was 25 minutes earlier in the game. That's the stuff to me that's more important. I do think the league should take control of every goal. I don't think there should be coaches' challenges. I think it should be puck goes in the net. You're looking for a couple of things. Was the entry into the zone fine? Like not offside? Was there a
Hmm.
high stick around the play? Was there goalie interference?
Hmm.
That's it. But you can't go back and say, was there a trip on the play? Was there a, you
I
just
agree.
can't. You just can't.
I agree. All right. Big news out of Florida. By the way, Paul Maurice, head coach of the Florida Panthers, will be joining us momentarily to talk about a lot of things. Um, this is a tough one for you, right? Because, I know you're a big fan of Paul Maurice. You talked about
Think
Jon
he's
Cooper and
terrific.
how articulate he is. I mean, we're going to have the two best communicating coaches in hockey, period, in the same state of Florida, with
Yeah.
Paul Maurice joining the Florida Panthers. But this one probably stings a little bit for you because you and Andrew Burnett have a long history. He's a good friend of yours. And this has a smell to it. It does, Ray. The fact that Brunette, he didn't take over the Florida Panthers with 15 games left in the regular season, right? Coached 70 plus games, helping this team to a President's Trophy, Jack Adams finalist, and he's essentially pushed out, right? I mean, they've given him the luxury of an opportunity to stay within the organization, but he's not going to do that. He's going to want and deserve a fresh start. So this is a challenge for you to
Yeah.
analyze this one, right? Because a good coach is coming in, but a pretty good coach and a good friend is going out.
Yeah. It is and it isn't. So this is why I think I can analyze games, is because I can separate this a little bit and
Right.
just look at it. But I can acknowledge Bruno's one of my best friends, um, that I played with in the game.
Yeah.
Just an amazing guy. Did a fantastic job. Don't forget, he came in, and while Florida was off to a great start, just think of the mess that was going around them when Joel Quenneville was removed.
Yeah.
And
Messy. Yeah.
he steadied the ship. They, I mean, they had 100 and whatever they had points. I thought it was dealt with in very poor fashion by by Bill Zito and Florida. Whether it's Andrew or if it was the other way around,
Right.
I think
Yeah.
it's dealt with in very poor fashion. He's talking to 6 or 7 coaches. Like, there's 13 jobs out there. Well, now there's 6.
Hmm.
If you're talking to 6 other coaches, that means you're going to make a change.
Yeah.
At least have the, I don't know, the courage to be honest. Because if Bill Zito wanted to be a general manager and there were 13 GMs spots open
Right.
and his employer didn't give him the green light to go talk anywhere else until 8 of those were filled, he'd be pissed. And
Sure
I'm
he would.
sure, I
Yeah.
haven't talked to Andrew since the change was made public. Uh, I'm sure he is, and I'm sure he's, even though it seemed obvious, I'm sure he's rather blindsided
Yeah.
by it.
So, and I don't look, you don't have to mention a specific team or whatever. I mean, we can
Yeah,
speculate moving forward here. Uh, Andrew Burnett's a good coach. If I
yeah,
were a team that had a coach on an expiring deal going into the final year of his contract, and I was a little bit unsure or a lot unsure, I'd be looking at him closely. Just to bring him in, right? Maybe he starts as an assistant or an associate coach, but isn't that just good business to have an insurance plan potentially in place if you need it? Not to say that the guy going into his final year is going to get dusted. Maybe they
yeah.
have a great year and you extend that coach and, Burnett can stay or go somewhere else. But to me, if he doesn't get one of the openings as head coach, he'd be a real nice insurance policy.
I think there's going to be uh, some opportunities that'll spring up. He's
Hmm.
got to be ready to take them though. And so right now, like, you haven't even talked to anybody because he
No.
couldn't,
Yeah.
wasn't allowed to. And so else is out there, he doesn't even have a feel for what that might be. I mean, there's still,
Hmm.
how many openings are there still? There's Boston, um,
Chicago, Detroit, and Winnipeg.
right? So it's just down to 4.
Yeah.
So those guys, I assume when I say those guys, those teams, they're already down the road on their interviews
Hmm.
with whomever it might be. Oh yeah, Barry Trotz is still there. So really, there's 3.
Yeah.
So
True.
I don't know what he's going to do. Look, it happens. I understand that. My perspective is it should have been done more cleanly and
Yeah.
with more openness.
All right. Well, we mentioned Winnipeg. Elliot Friedman with a story earlier this week on the broadcast talking about PierreLuc Dubois informing the Winnipeg Jets that, yeah, I know I'm a restricted free agent here in the near future. Just so you know, I'm not interested in a long-term contract in Winnipeg. I am interested in a bridge that will walk me to free agency. So, and automatically, I did Montreal radio this morning, Friday morning as we record, and they're buzzing in Montreal with the idea that PierreLuc Dubois is just going to waltz right in, and maybe it happens. So if you're Chevy here, what do you do, Ray? I mean, do you use the time if you're forced into a bridge and hope that he has a change of heart? Or do you go into the upcoming draft and say, okay, whether it's Montreal or somebody else, I need players back, but I'm interested in a pick too. Like, do you get that ball rolling now is what I'm asking.
I take the opportunity with a new coach, with a significant asset that doesn't want to stay, and I accelerate my rebuild now.
Interesting. So you're moving.
I'm moving them. I'm looking at Scheifele and Wheeler too. Like I think this is not ideal, but an opportunity to shift the core of your team into a far younger group and build that group together. I don't know any other way you can do it, because do I really want a 28-year-old player back?
Mm-hmm.
I don't, because there's going to be a bump in the road with Scheifele somewhere.
Absolutely.
So do it now. You've got all the cards on the table. Put them out there and say, all right, guys, other teams, come and make me an offer.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything that I love PierreLuc Dubois, and I think you do as well. The kid is a horse, and we don't know what the top end is entirely yet. But is there a reputation that is developing or has developed? Because he didn't want to stay in Columbus either. I mean, that's essentially why he's in Winnipeg, right? They found the fit. Patrick Laine wasn't going to work out long-term in Winnipeg. There you go. Boom. You've got the match. Do you run out of runway as a player, even a player of this significance, when you continually do that with your contracts?
I think you will if you don't have production. I think teams put up with it as much as they hate it. If there is more production, I look at not the same player, but remember when Eric Staal was just like kind of this big horse that nobody really could control, like you couldn't play against him. Right? Yeah. That's what I think of with Dubois. Like I picture him as not a number one center, not a true one, but man, he's really good.
Got some bite in him too, right? There's some dirtiness to his game.
So, I mean, it's not the same, but Adam Fox has been in 3 organizations because he was working his way to the Rangers.
Yeah.
Every time, everybody knew where he was going to end up. And so if it seems...
Could be the same with Dubois in Montreal, right?
Yes. I mean, if it seems that obvious, it probably is that obvious. Yeah. And so if I'm Kevin Cheveldayoff, as I said, I'm looking at this draft and say, and I'm not looking at somebody with the 14th pick.
Yeah.
I'm looking in that top couple of picks. You want to be involved? This guy was the number 3 pick in his draft year.
Yeah.
And which teams
first
have
pick overall? Would you consider it? I'm radioing you right now.
Yeah, no, I would not. First pick, I would not.
Okay.
I just, well, it depends who you think the first pick is and what you think that pick is capable of.
Right. Yeah.
But you would also, I would also say, if I'm in that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 picks, I need to talk to him first. I'm not giving you this pick and he bolts out of here in 2 years.
No, there would have to be a deal in place.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we've got a lot coming up here in episode 40. This is episode 39, 40. We're looking at the draft, maybe some of the wheeling and dealing. We touched on it here. Then we'll look at some of the top free agent guys too. Forsberg, Nazem Kadri here in the Stanley Cup Final. Johnny Gaudreau, obviously trying to get something done with Calgary. So we'll march forward in episode 40 with that. Thank you to Boston Pizza for headlines in episode 39. Our interviews on Ray and Dregs are brought to you by our pals at Canadian Club Whiskey, who are asking, are you over beer? Why not try a refreshing CC Ginger Ale with lime next time you're having a drink or you're watching the Stanley Cup Finals? And Ray, how about this? I know you enjoy it. Can't wait to get back into Canada for the new CC and Ginger Ale mixed and ready in a can. Ooh, and it's nice. I checked the weather in Vancouver, and it, perfect, right?
It's just
for the
getting
most
there.
part.
It's just getting
It's
there.
Been a while.
I've heard as I complain about the heat and humidity in Tampa and how hot it's been in Denver, I'm not getting the same story from Vancouver.
Well, the mixed and ready CC and ginger ale in a can will be there and waiting. Takes all the challenges out of making that refreshing CC and ginger ale on your own. All right, Paul Maurice, the head coach of the Florida Panthers, now joining us on the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast. I'll get to a simple question, which is why the Florida Panthers, Paul. But I want to kind of take a bigger picture. I mean, why leave the comforts of the ice fishing, the hunting, the lifestyle that you had, to leave the Winnipeg Jets to recharge and do everything that you wanted to do, needed to do with your family? Right. Why is Florida? Why are the Panthers the best fit for you now?
That's a big question. So first of all, let's separate my work life with the Winnipeg Jets and the hunting and fishing.
Okay.
Because I'm keeping the cottage, so that part's not going to leave, right? You know what? So you guys know this as well as anybody. 9 years in the Canadian market, and if you're not winning the Stanley Cup, you push as hard as you can every single day. Yeah. And I just felt, and it wasn't this year, over the last, and it was almost right from the shutdown with COVID, you start to lose your effectiveness as a leader. I don't think I lost the team. That's not what I'm talking about. But you push hard, you push a lot of buttons, and at some point, you need a new coach. I do believe there's a coaching window. If you're not winning Stanley Cups, you push as hard as you can, and then the team starts to kind of go sideways. I think they got a great team up there, and I think they need a different voice, and they're going to get one, and these guys are going to take off again. So the personal part of that is, as I became aware of it, I found it harder and harder to handle. Like mentally, it affects you. If you don't feel like you're getting your job done, you critique your own performance. My leaving that bench was coming one way or the other. It was either you're going to get fired and that's fine, but I had no interest in getting paid for work that I wasn't going to do. It was just the right thing for me. It needed to happen for me. It needed to happen to the Jets. So I was completely comfortable with the decision and hadn't really thought about what's next. As you said, I enjoy the outdoors, and the outdoors up there are spectacular. And there's a bunch of little kind of serendipitous things that had happened between January and the phone call. But at the end of the day, driving down the road, and I get a phone call about 10, 11 days ago, and it's Bill Zito, and he said, I don't know where you're at or what you're interested in doing. And the words out of my mouth were, I'm interested in the Florida Panthers, right? Before you're even thinking, I was. So I've watched this team play because I like watching the teams that are hot, that are on runs, that are on rolls, and you know why. So I've watched them play quite a bit. That's exciting, but not necessarily the main draw. So when I came down to Florida for the interview, I wasn't really coming down to get the job. I was just coming down to answer questions. And then I didn't know Bill Zito, hadn't spent really any time with him. I know a bunch of people that work here quite well, but boy, he's an impressive hockey mind, and the energy to spare. Like he's rolling. He's trying to make this team better every single day. It's the middle of June, and he's 12 hours at it. So that is contagious. That is exciting. One of the interview days was about 10, 11 hours long. And it could have gone longer. And by the time you walk out of there, you're hooked. After that, after the first interview, I wanted the job.
Okay, so you're out hunting and fishing and doing whatever you're doing. And do you forget in that time the stress of coaching? Like, are you
Yes.
able to go, and then so now have you forgotten the stress of coaching because you're coming back? Or is that part of the
Yeah.
recharge?
So what was different for me, Ray, was, it's 26 years where the stress never actually leaves you. And stress isn't a bad thing. It's a good thing. It drives you. It's the juice. It's hand in hand. What's great about the job is the stress that comes with it. But it never leaves you. Whether you're thinking about next year or you're looking for your next job, whatever it is, it's there. But then it was gone, right? So I got a pure stretch of time where I wasn't thinking about the next job, just kind of enjoying life and kind of hitting that reset. So I do, I do think, and I know I'm going to get hated by all the women out there. There's the childbirth effect. Like if we could remember the pain, right, we'd all be single children, right? We'd never have more than one kid. So you do forget some of the grind, but done it long enough that you can accept that. If you're passionate about what you're doing, if you love the game, even when it's really lousy, you still are fired up to go to the rink. So that stress a lot of times is part of the best part of the job as well.
How quick do you start watching games again once you took stepped off the
Oh,
bench? Do you,
you know, so there's two different ways. There's flipping through the channels, right? When you're
right,
watching
right.
every game that's
Yep.
on, or when you start watching again. I took a long time where I was just a flipper, where I was just really casual. I was fun, you're not pre-scouting, you're not trying to learn really much. You're just the enjoyment of the game. And then, so I've always done kind of playoffs a little differently. So when you get kicked out of the playoffs, if you don't win the Stanley Cup, you're in a bad mood. I won't watch the rest of the playoff games. It's too painful. And what I'll do in August is I'll go back and I'll watch the Stanley Cup champion and the runner-up, and I'll mark their games like I'm coaching their team
Hmm.
to try to get an understanding of what it was that they did that got them over the hump. So that process will start for me. Like last year, I've gone through Tampa obviously twice now. I loved Florida's series last year against the Tampa Bay Lightning. I thought they were fantastic. So that's my process with how I work.
Now, in a 10 or 11-hour interview, I mean, you're
Yeah,
only talking about one team, like I assume, but like for 10 hours, like what do you talk
Ray,
about?
that is a normal day for you, man. You're talking hockey all the time, right? So that's
Yeah, but
that's where
I
you
got
start.
drags, and we're talking about every team, not
Yeah.
one
Yes,
team.
but what we talked about was hockey. So it wasn't,
Uh,
you go through the lineup, that's fine. But just start talking about different. So when it's easy, when you kind of feel that fit, the conversation is never ending, and you bounce from stories to questions to ideas. So as much as it maybe interview is the wrong word, it was just an awfully long hockey conversation that if we
hmm.
probably had more coffee, we could have kept going.
Hmm. This is probably a question, Paul, more for Billy Zito. But when you look at the Florida Panthers now, and we're seeing it in the series with Colorado and the Tampa Bay Lightning, I mean, we know the Florida Panthers are a high skilled team, a high evolved team. Didn't go as deep into the playoffs as they were hoping, as they were expecting. So is it what Colorado had to do to get to this place? What Tampa Bay has been so successful at over the last 3 years, finding out how hard you have to grind defensively and otherwise to win the games. It can't just be about the high level skill. Florida has that
So,
in abundance. So does that factor into why the Panthers decided Paul Maurice, a detailed guy, is the best fit for us to move forward?
yeah, I think Bill and I'm not speaking for him, but Bill has talked about this kind of continuum that they felt their team was at a certain place that they needed a veteran coach. And there are some challenges coming up with this team next year. And so one of the things to look at is regulation wins, right? So they won the president. Listen, they earned it. They're fantastic, but they got like 16 points after the hockey game ended and the 3-on-3 and the shootout started.
Hmm.
I think they're probably sitting third or fourth in regulation wins. But we're going to come back as a 122-point team and the highest scoring team in the league, and people will expect 123, and they're going to expect easier goals to be scored because we've already learned how to do it. So there's going to be some challenges in here, and I think sometimes you need a guy behind the bench that's been through that before, knows how to weather that a little bit. You talk about the stress of the job, understands it a little bit. This is you guys both know this because you've been in hockey your whole lives. it's the same progression of all of those teams. So we talk about Tampa the last 3 years, but go back 5, right? So they went to the final, they missed the playoffs. They had those words, highly skilled, exciting team. That's how we talked about the Pittsburgh Penguins were that for years. Go back to the Detroit Red Wings of the 90s and into the 2000s. So these great teams, amassing a skill level like Florida has is not easy to do. There are a few very, very skilled teams. Colorado's one of them, and now. But there's a whole lot of growth that has to go beyond the skill parts of the game without the puck. And then it's kind of like getting to the point, okay, we've paid enough of a price here that we not only do we deserve to win, we demand to win. Because Colorado's been a good team for quite a while. They've been a dynamic, I mean, Nathan McKinnon and those players have been spectacular for a number of years. It's almost like they get to the point that they feel they've earned it.
Is it? I have this theory. It's foolish to the copycat league. I think it's foolish to chase somebody else because you can try and do the same things. You don't have the same people. Correct. What can you take from from a Tampa and from a Colorado and from the New York Rangers, that were all in the conference finals as well?
Right.
You can't mirror them because you don't have the same humans. You've got different great players. What do you take from that?
So look at it. Just look back kind of in my experience of Stanley Cup champions that beat us in the playoffs. So we always hit Jersey in Carolina, and that didn't go so well till it did. And think about Pittsburgh in 2009 beat us. Detroit beat us in the Stanley Cup Final in 2002. St. Louis beat us on their way to the Stanley Cup. Completely different teams. Think about Jersey to Pittsburgh. We're talking about completely different teams. But the thing that beat us was not their skill. Yeah, they had skilled players. Those teams were so hard on the puck. There was no gap. When you had it, they were on you. You couldn't move the puck. That was the thing that they all share in common. And I would suggest that's very true of the Tampa Bay Lightning. That's what they looked like. So you're right. You bring in Coleman and Gaudreau, and that kind of changes their checking line. And now you've got Stamkos at times rolling in the 3-hole when everybody's healthy. There's no easy ice for those great teams, regardless of style, and that's an attitude. Certainly, there's details to that. You have to coach that so you can get fast at your defense. You have to understand it, but that's an attitude.
What's
How quickly you start?
one?
Oh, I was just going to ask. Go ahead.
Yeah, same question. I mean, Ray is asking how quickly you get at it, but I was saying, so what's priority 1 for you?
Phone calls and staff and phone calls first. So we're doing both at the same time. I'll reach out and it'll just be a hello. I'm not going to talk even a little bit of hockey with these guys. And then I will go back and I will spend a month going through hockey, just video and getting to truly understand how they got to where they got to, what the playoffs were like for them, so I can understand them individually as a team. Then the phone calls will happen again, and those will be more hockey related. How do we get you to the next level? What it is that you think you need from a coaching staff? Where are the biggest areas of improvement for the team? What's really good here? And we want to make sure we keep that. My understanding is it's an incredibly close locker room, so we want to recreate some things. I'm not looking at changing a whole lot, fellas. It's about adding some things to their game that they can look at that as a strength too. Right now, this team is a very strong offensive team, and we got to become a very strong defensive team as well, without taking away that high-end skill. But we'll start with simple communication, break down some video, more in-depth communication, and then prep for camp.
When do you buy a house? When do you get organized like that? Where does that fit in the whole thing?
Yeah, whenever she says we will. So what I think this is move number 10 for us, and
10.
I have done absolutely nothing in all of it. Yeah, I think so. I think this is our 10th house, and she's good at it. She's a pro.
I mean, I spent a lot of time in Winnipeg. I know that you love the city of Winnipeg, the community of Winnipeg, but is there a more drastic change in the National Hockey League than moving from Winnipeg to Sunrise, Florida?
Oh, and especially with the winter we had in Winnipeg, it was as tough, Dregs, and you know it was as tough as I've ever seen. Those are hardy, strong people. You know what? 75 of my clothes is now useless down here. But great change. We did about 13 years in Carolina, so not quite the same, but close enough.
Well, don't bring those suits back. Those are all out of style from Carolina. You got to stay up on them, would you?
They always come back, Ray. They always come back.
Always come back. All right, Paul. Well, we appreciate. We know you're busy. You've got laundry to do. You've got prep work to do, and getting ready for the upcoming season, the draft, all of that. We appreciate you taking the time and joining us.
Hey guys, anytime. Thanks very much for having me.
See you next year, and good luck to you, Paul.
Thank you. Thanks, Ray.
And we'd like to raise a glass of 44-year-old CC to Paul Maurice for joining us today on the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast, presented by our friends at Canadian Club Whiskey. The 44-year-old release is available everywhere, so don't miss out. I feel like at some point in the near future, it's going to sell out, right? I mean, it is a special drink, so take advantage of it. How about Paul Maurice? He's just... We joked a little bit about it, but now you've got two very articulate men in Jon Cooper and Paul Maurice in the state of Florida. When he left Winnipeg, Ray, he was very honest in talking to the media about why he left Winnipeg and how he felt like they just needed a change. And he talked about that here in the podcast with us as well. But I don't know if you sense the same thing. He does. He sounds like a man who's recharged and ready for a new challenge.
Well, I'm always interested in the guys that go from job and then they might not get another head job. They go to an assistant coach and like they never leave. And so Paul talked about 26 years of never really out of the stress.
Yeah.
And there's got to be a point there. I'm going to use it tonight, talking about the Tampa Bay Lightning. Like, you can only pull a rubber band so far, and then you just can't pull it anymore. And I wonder if that's where Paul was, as I think about it, with coaching. Like, you can only pull the band so tight, and then you got to release it. And I think it's, I mean, he's sitting there, and it's a new team, new conference.
Yeah.
So it's not just one new team; it's 16 new teams because he's got to learn a whole new grouping of teams, and so. That would be energetic, and the change in life from Manitoba to Florida is it's 180 degrees. There's going to be lots to fuel the engine there.
Do you think he would have been a coach that you would have gravitated to? You would have, just because of the level of communication, right? And having a conversation about the specifics. Well, here's what I think. Well, here's what I think. I feel like he has a connection with his players.
I would believe so. The other thing I would like is I didn't like when it took a long time to get to the point. Like, I dealt best with like, this is what I need you to do, and this is how and I dealt best. Like, there's some players you got to pat on the back, and others you got to give them a little kick in the pants once in a while. And unfortunately for me, I seem to respond better than the kick in the pants. And so that's what I always got. So I just know that Paul's direct and he communicates, and you shouldn't, if you have a question, you need to go ask because he's going to give you the answer. You might not like the answer, but you're going to get one.
All right. Again, thanks to Paul Maurice and the Florida Panthers for helping us out here in episode 39. Chris Abbott, shocking, is in Vegas. This is his 9th trip to Vegas this season in season 3. So he's unavailable.
Well, all I hope is he's got his shirt on. He posted a picture without his shirt. What is he doing?
I don't know. That was an odd picture. I was going to chirp him about it, but then you do that on social media, and it just invites all the...
No, I mean, you should do it personally. We should send him.
Oh, yeah, definitely. No, we automatically, I edited the picture, and I sent it to you. So, I mean, we'll add that to the arsenal. And in fact, when he's back for episode 40... I think we'll post it on the Ray and Dregs website, maybe on our socials, just in promoting coolbet.co.
Yeah, I think that'll bring the crowd in.
Speaking of coolbet.co, it's up to us now to battle through some of the odds of the remaining games of the Stanley Cup Final. At all surprised that the Tampa Bay Lightning are plus 154, Colorado minus 182 for Game 5 only? That seems about right, doesn't it?
No, I look at Tampa, honestly, I'm like, so Chernak didn't finish the game.
Yeah.
Cirelli, I don't know how he finished the game. Those guys are, I have so much admiration for how they've played and how they've had to play to get to this point.
Yeah.
I just don't know if there's anything left for them to fight with. And remember, Colorado had eight days off, right, before the
Yeah.
finals.
Yeah.
So rest matters. And it mattered in the Ranger series where Tampa was fresh and the Rangers, remember, started quick on Tampa. And then Tampa won 4 straight games. Rest kicks in. And I think it's very, very valuable. If you look at the third period and overtime in game 4, Tampa never had the puck. And so that's kind of what I think is going on here.
Well, and speaking of, then we lost the puck, as we kind of touched on earlier, right? In the overtime winner.
Oh, yeah.
Like, how do they fix this? Like, what? Like, were you scrambling? I mean, Nazem Kadri had no idea that he had just scored the game-winning overtime goal.
Well, okay, 2 things there. First off is the puck goes in the net, which of course we don't know because you can't see it.
Right.
So I clicked in, I think, as quickly as I did, just watching Vasilevsky, his shoulders slumped. If he was trying to hold that puck under his arm, his shoulders wouldn't have slumped. Like he would have been holding as firm as he could.
Right.
He slumped, and then I see like a little bit of stuff going on, and then Byram skating around the back of the net. Like he saw it. He knew where it was.
Yeah.
So that's how I knew. Like we're saying in our headsets, where is it? Because it happened so fast.
Yeah.
The other part of this, to me, I would say, I don't know, it's got to be 20 times a year. A puck gets shot, hits the back metal bar, bounces out. Everybody in the rink thinks it's hit the crossbar, and they've got to review it. That puck the other night gets stuck behind that metal bar. Can we not put a padded cushion that's angled downward in the back of the net? So when the puck hits that, it just bounces down on the ice. You make it impossible for it to stick in the net. I get a cameraman extraordinaire, Dave Parker. I run into him. He goes, all of our stuff are in our camera gear. Everything's carbon fiber. He's like, it's so thin. He's like, why would that even be thick enough to hold the puck? I'm like, I don't have an answer. So I don't know. I want that bar out of there. It's the simplest fix for something that doesn't need to be there.
Nice.
It's just padding.
All right, we'll wrap up the coolbet.co segment here. Over under is set at 6 goals. Does it get to 6 in game 5?
Yes.
Okay.
I think it does. By the way, what's the odds of Tampa coming back to win the series?
The series?
Yeah.
Right now, plus 900. So if you're going to put money down because you have an inclination Tampa Bay is going to one more time display that incredible resiliency, now is the time to put the cash on the line. So Tampa Bay is plus 900.
I'll just throw this out, Greg. I'll just throw this out. One time in the finals, it's happened. 1942.
Toronto
the Leafs were down
right?
3-0. They were down. One time.
Yeah. Well, Colorado
seems
right now
like a long shot.
It seems like a long shot. So what you're saying is you're not putting 10 G's down on the Tampa Bay comeback here.
No.
All right.
But
Colorado,
wouldn't that be so amazing? They're amazing, though.
Would be.
They're
minus 1429. That's what the odds are. So minus 1429 for Colorado. Tampa Bay plus 900. And a shirt-wearing, not shirtless, Chris Abbott from coolbet.co will join us in episode 40. All right, time for Ask Ray and Riggs Anything, presented by Doer, the world's most comfortable pants and shorts. Remember, use code RND15 and you're going to save 15% off everything at doer.ca. And as we know, Ray, everything at Doer is top-notch. The t-shirts, the shorts, the pants, most comfortable clothing you're ever
really comfortable. Love it.
From Anthony. Instagram. Respectfully, which is always a tough way to
Oh,
start a question.
something's coming up there with something. Go ahead.
Okay. Respectfully, what would Ray's perfect day with the Stanley Cup have been? If you had won it, of course.
Ooh. Well,
Can I lead you a little bit? I'm going to say it would involve your dad, right?
I was
Of
just
course.
thinking if
Yeah.
Dad was still alive, it would have been back home to Trail with Mom and Dad and the family and friends and cousins that pop out of the woodwork all over the place. And
Yeah.
we would have been had a place at the time at Christina Lake, this gorgeous little lake in southeastern BC, and we would have been there.
Yeah.
I would have taken the cup golfing, and I would have taken it to my Nona, who used to watch on the 11 o'clock news to see if my name popped up. She wasn't sure why it was coming up sometimes, because she wasn't
Right.
wasn't a big hockey fan, but she was just looking to see if I was there. It would have been around family and nothing really extravagant, but I look at these guys that get to have that day with the cup, and I'm like, that is one of the great traditions that the league has instituted. Yeah,
So good.
I think I like that more than almost anything, seeing how people get to connect with their family again over something that's been a lifelong dream.
You mentioned Christina Lake, and we're not going to go down that path here, but I spent time at the Memorial Cup in St. John with Kevin Sawyer, who told a couple of Ray Ferraro training stories.
Oh, they're all true.
Christina Lake. Oh boy. So we have to get Sawyer on the podcast in season 4, because he's got some dandies. So I was cackling, but I can appreciate just speaking to your competitive fire. And, if you lifted an ounce less weight than the day before, that dumbbell was going through a window or through a wall.
No good.
Or
Yeah, no good. Yeah, no
okay.
good.
So we'll get Kevin on at some point here. Twitter @MadBridge. All right, Ray, a hypothetical, which we know you love the hypotheticals as well. It's like starting with respectfully. Anyway, if the Toronto Maple Leafs had kept Nazem Kadri, would he have made the difference for the Toronto Maple Leafs in round 1 against Tampa Bay Lightning?
Well, remember, if you have Nazem Kadri, he makes what, 5.5, something like that?
Yeah, around there. Yeah.
So you have to take out $5.5 million in players around the roster. You don't get to add him.
No.
And keep the same team. So it really becomes a difficult challenge. I don't know. Look at the way Kadri has played this year, and he would make a difference anywhere he would be.
Yeah.
So, but it's a tough one, because I don't know who are we taking off of that team? Because
you can't add without subtracting. You're right. You don't have Camp. You probably don't have Kasha. Like the pieces that Dubas was able to bring in to round out the forwards, especially, you're not going to be able to do that. Good questions this week, and Ask Ray and Driggs anything.
Give us another one.
The Jared Waldo, Ray, on Instagram. On Twitter. In your opinion, who would you rather have had on the power play firing a one-timer from the off wing? Ovechkin or Brett Hull?
Oh. Jeez.
That's good one.
Really good. I think probably Ovi's got more one-time goals from there, but how do you go past Brett? Like that is a really good either or.
Really good.
Really good, because
2 magnificent shooters. Right?
Oh boy. And they both, when you're on the power play, both of them, everybody in the building knew the puck was getting there eventually.
Yeah.
Like they without demanding it, they demanded it. And so and each guy had somebody on that power play that could and would deliver the puck there. Right? Like Hull had Oates and Janney.
Yeah.
And Ovi had Backstrom and Kuznetsov, and then you had a defenseman up top. Oof. Yeah, that was like Pronger and McGinnis. They could lay the puck to Hully.
Yeah.
and be a shot threat. And
Yeah.
Washington had it with Mike Green and then John Carlson. Same thing.
Love it. All right, one more to jam in here on Ask Ray and Dregs Anything, and this is a fun one as well. At Ryan_B_White. Did any of your teams, Ray, have an impactful older European signing, so a European player, when you played? And I mean, the obvious answer is yes, but who comes to mind as top of that list?
Well, when you mean like are we talking about like a guy that came in as a free agent or a European player that we drafted, or?
I mean, I don't think it matters.
Well,
Who's the top European player you played with?
I'm going to go through teams, but I mean, Alex Kovalev, pretty good player. Alfie Samuelsson, pretty good player. So I'm going Hartford. Then I went to the Islanders.
Was Alfie with the Islanders at the time?
He was just coming in.
Okay.
I was leaving. Ziggy was just still wearing that really short tie with the crazy hairdo.
Yeah.
Then I went, where'd I go? LA, Atlanta, St. Louis. Well, Pavel Dimitra.
Yeah.
So the answer is yes. I mean, there's so many really great players. There was a time when it was a story. Now it's just another guy.
It is.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing.
Ask Ray and Dregs Anything. Some good stuff. And we didn't even get to a third of it. So we've got plenty in the hopper for episode 40. I don't want to jinx you again, recording this just hours prior to Game 5, but we're going to wrap up the podcast. We don't cheer for either team. That's not what we're about. We cheer for life. And your life is going to be less hectic and more family filled. If not after tonight, then at least you can see the end. The finish line is there, right? Does that give you pause and appreciation for everything you've been through, but what you've got coming, which is a nice summer with your family?
Well, look, I mean, as I've said 8 million times, it doesn't matter to me who wins or loses. It really doesn't. The end of the road is right there. And whether it's one more game or games 5, 6, 7, it's going to be, within 6 or 7 days. But oh boy, I want to go watch my son play soccer. I want to
love it.
And so it doesn't matter what I do. I call the game. Somebody's going to win. Somebody's going to lose. I'm going to be on a flight tomorrow morning. I just don't know where I'm going.
Jam-packed episode 39 of the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast. So you travel safe.
Thank you,
no matter
Dregs.
what direction you're going. We'll be enjoying the coverage, the rest of the coverage of the Stanley Cup Final. Big numbers, by the way, on ABC. I should be surprised.
I'm sure the bosses are happy. That's a good thing to see.
Great thing. Huge shout out to our partners who make the podcast possible, by our title sponsors, our good friends at Canadian Club Whiskey, who ask, are you over beer? Coolbet.co, the free-to-play sports and casino games website. By Boston Pizza, pick it up or get it delivered to your door. Let Boston Pizza do the cooking tonight. And by Doer, use code RND15 and you will save 15% off everything at doer.ca. Thanks for checking out episode 39, episode 40, final podcast of season 3 coming your way in the near future. Be well, everybody.